In 2025, many American families are no longer choosing what to eat based on preference, but on pure necessity. From retirees living on fixed incomes to young adults juggling rent and student loans, and families trying to stretch every dollar at stores like Walmart, Aldi, or Costco, everyone's feeling it. The grocery cart that once fed a household now barely covers the week. Inflation may not dominate headlines like it used to, but in the real world, it's still roaring. It's not just about higher prices. It's about the quiet disappearance of once affordable staples. You might still see them on shelves, but more and more shoppers are walking past them, unable to justify the cost. We're not talking about gourmet foods or fancy trends. We're talking about everyday basics. Foods that used to fill in lunchboxes, feed growing kids, or stretch a tight budget across a full week. In this video, we're diving into 6 essential food items that American households are now quietly giving up. These aren't luxury goods, they're the backbone of everyday meals. But rising costs, unpredictable supply chains, and global disruptions are pushing them out of reach. Whether you're trying to build a pantry that lasts, feed a big family, or just make it to the next paycheck, knowing what's becoming unaffordable and why can help you prepare smarter and avoid tough surprises. Let's take a look at the 6 essential foods more and more Americans can no longer afford to stock up on. For decades, cheese was the go-to comfort food for many American households. It melted into casseroles, layered sandwiches, topped burgers, and made macaroni sing. It wasn't just a flavor booster, it was a meal stretcher. A few slices or a small handful could turn humble ingredients into something hearty. But in Tweu, cheese is starting to feel like a luxury. From shredded cheddar to sliced American, prices across the board have shot up, sometimes by 30% to 50% compared to just 2 years ago. For shoppers on Snap or Wiki, cheese is eating up a bigger chunk of monthly benefits, leaving less room for everything else. So what's behind the cheese crunch? It starts with the dairy industry. Milk, the foundation of all cheese, has become more expensive to produce due to droughts and grain shortages. States like California, which lead the nation in dairy, are battling unpredictable weather, water restrictions, and soaring feed costs. Cows are expensive to raise, and it's only getting harder. Add in rising energy bills, labor shortages, and spiking diesel prices, and the cost of keeping cheese refrigerated and transported to your local store has climbed drastically. Transporting cheese isn't as simple as shipping rice or canned beans. It needs cold storage, fast logistics, and reliability. Those come at a premium now. The result? Families are starting to second-guess their mac and cheese nights. That 2-tile block of cheddar that used to be a budget win, it's now closer to $10 or more. Pre-sliced or pre-shredded options, once convenient, are now priced out of reach for many. Even schools are feeling the squeeze. With tight food budgets, many lunch programs are cutting back on cheese-based meals. Food banks, too, are seeing fewer donations of dairy due to both cost and perishability. Some report they've almost entirely stopped receiving cheese altogether. Cheese may not be disappearing, but for many families trying to stretch meals and dollars, it's no longer an automatic item on the grocery list. It's a choice, and increasingly, it's one they're forced to say no to. For generations, pasta has been the go-to solution for tight budgets and big appetites. Whether it's a heaping plate of spaghetti on Sunday night or mac and cheese after a long day, pasta has always been there to stretch meals without stretching wallets. Cheap, shelf-stable, and versatile, it's been a lifeline for low-income families, students, and anyone trying to cook in bulk. But as 2025 unfolds, pasta is quietly losing its status as the ultimate budget food. In recent months, shoppers have noticed something off. That familiar box of pasta is smaller. The price? Not so much. Welcome to shrinkflation. What used to be a 16-ounce box is now often just 12 ounces and still costs the same or even more. Wera, it starts at the source. Durum wheat, the key ingredient in most pasta, has taken a beating. Extreme weather patterns, droughts in North America, heat waves in Europe, have decimated harvests. yields are down, and global supply is struggling to recover. Less wheat means higher prices for manufacturers, and those costs get passed straight to the shelves. Pasta producers are adapting the only way they can, shrinking package sizes, cutting promotional deals, and quietly raising prices. The result is a product that feels the same until you cook it and realize there's not quite enough for a second helping. Store brands, once the reliable fallback for bargain hunters, aren't immune either. Even private label pasta at Aldi or Walmart is creeping up in price. For families that buy in bulk to get through the month, that's a big problem. $1 or $2 more per box might not sound like much until you're feeding 5 hungry mouths every night. And it's not just home kitchens that are hurting. Food banks and meal programs that used to depend on pasta because it's cheap, filling, and shelf-stable are now struggling to keep it in stock. Some report receiving half the donations they used to, while demand continues to rise. There's also the trade angle. Previous tariffs and tensions with countries like Canada and Italy, major exporters of wheat and pasta products, haven't fully resolved. Those hidden costs continue to weigh down supply chains and inflate prices, even if most shoppers don't realize it. So yes, pasta is still on the shelves. But for many American households, it's no longer the unbeatable deal it once was. And when even the cheapest food options start to feel expensive, families are forced to make hard choices. There was a time when chicken was the automatic answer to, what's for dinner? It was affordable, packed with protein, and endlessly versatile, baked, fried, grilled, tossed into salads or pasta. For working families, retirees on fixed incomes, and budget-savvy college students, chicken was the protein that always fit the budget. But in Wave 5, that's changed. A lot. What used to be the most budget-friendly meat is becoming harder to afford with each passing month. Prices are up, and it's not just a few cents here and there. In some regions, shoppers have seen a 40 to 60% increase in their regular chicken purchases. A tray of drumsticks or thighs that once cost $5 might now be pushing $8 or more. So what's going on? It begins with feed costs. Corn and soybeans, the two primary ingredients in chicken feed, have become significantly more expensive due to global demand, climate disruptions in the Midwest, and export restrictions abroad. When it's more expensive to feed the chickens, the final product costs more. Simple economics. Then there's the issue of labor and production cuts. Major producers like Tyson have openly reduced output, citing workforce shortages and the high cost of operations. Fewer workers, fewer birds, and more competition among buyers. None of that spells cheap chicken. And we can't forget fuel and transport. Getting fresh or frozen poultry from farms to processing centers to distribution hubs to grocery stores takes a massive logistics chain, much of which is powered by diesel. With gas prices remaining stubbornly high, every stop along the way adds cost. This ripple effect is playing out visibly in stores. Bulk packs are getting smaller, promotions are disappearing, and the once reliable $4.99 rotisserie chicken at places like Sam's Club or Costco, it's inching up toward $9 or $10 in some cities. And for families feeding multiple people, that price hike hits hard. Even the frozen aisle isn't safe. Value packs of frozen breasts or tenders used to be a fallback. Now they're often just as pricey or require a membership store purchase to find a deal. For many shoppers, the chicken aisle is no longer a safe zone for stretching their protein budget. As meat prices rise, many families are shifting to processed carbs or canned goods to fill the plate. Some skip meat altogether a few nights a week. But for those who used to rely on chicken as their primary protein source, the change isn't just about numbers. It's about nutrition, meal planning, and stress. Chicken hasn't disappeared from stores, but in households across America, it's disappearing from dinner tables more often than you'd expect. If there was ever a food that felt like a sure bet, it was peanut butter. It's shelf-stable, high in protein, kid-approved, and incredibly versatile. Spread it on toast, mix it in oatmeal, or eat it by the spoonful during tough times. For decades, peanut butter was a low-cost, no-fuss pantry staple that fit into every grocery budget. But now it's becoming one more item people have to think twice about before buying. In 2020, a standard jar of peanut butter can easily cost $4 to $6, depending on where you live. That's double what it was just a few years ago. And for low-income families, food banks, and school lunch programs, that price bump is devastating. So what happened? First, the peanut crop itself has taken a hit. States like Georgia and Alabama, America's peanut belt, have faced increased cases of aflatoxin contamination, a fungal issue caused by heat and humidity that can ruin entire harvests. Fewer healthy peanuts means a tighter supply for processors, and tighter supply always means higher prices. Second, the production costs have climbed. It's not just about peanuts, it's about the plastic jars, energy costs, labor shortages, and transportation fees, all of which have spiked. When you factor in the cost of making, packaging, and shipping peanut butter, you're no longer looking at a cheap food. And then came the gift recall, a massive product recall from one of the country's most popular peanut butter brands. The vacuum left by that disruption has yet to be fully filled, especially in rural areas or small towns where alternative brands aren't always stocked. Smaller producers have tried to keep up with demand, but many lack the infrastructure to replace such a major player. The result? Empty shelves, reduced donations to food banks, and schools scrambling to rework menus. Public schools, which relied on peanut butter for its protein content and budget friendliness, have started cutting it from their meal programs. Food banks that used to hand out jars by the dozen now ration what little they receive. Even at the household level, shoppers are adjusting. Some switch to cheaper spreads. Others try to stretch a jar longer by using smaller portions. But for many families, peanut butter, once the ultimate emergency food, is no longer guaranteed. And this shift matters, because when even peanut butter becomes unaffordable, it's a sign that the economic pressure has reached deep into the American pantry. Fresh fruits and vegetables are still lining store shelves, but for many Americans, they've become too expensive to touch. In 2020, families on fixed incomes are walking past apples, lettuce, and berries, not because they don't want them, but because they simply can't afford them. A head of lettuce now costs over $4. Apples are nearing $2.50 per pound. Blueberries can top $6 a container, even in peak season. Climate disasters in California and Florida, water restrictions, pest issues, and rising fuel prices have all made growing and transporting produce more expensive. In low-income neighborhoods and rural towns, where options are already limited, fresh produce feels out of reach. Many families are turning to canned or frozen alternatives, or skipping fruits and veggies altogether. The long-term health impact? Seriously. But for households juggling rent, gas, and groceries, fresh produce becomes the first thing to go. Food should never feel like a luxury, but in today's economy, that's exactly what it's becoming. Cooking oil used to be an afterthought. Now it's a budget. Cooking oil used to be an afterthought. Now it's a budget killer. Whether it's vegetable, canola, or sunflower oil, prices have soared in 2025. A gallon that once cost $6 is now over $10 in many stores, quietly squeezing household food budgets. The spike started with the war in Ukraine, which disrupted global sunflower oil exports. That drove up demand for alternatives like soybean and canola oil. Meanwhile, American farms faced droughts, rising fertilizer costs, and reduced harvests, limiting supply. Production costs didn't help either. Plastic bottles, transportation, and labor all got pricier. Restaurants are cutting back on fried items, and families are learning to stretch every drop. Many now avoid frying entirely, opting for baking or boiling. Some are even making homemade ghee or using butter in place of oil. It may not be the most talked about food item, but oil touches nearly every meal. And when the most basic ingredients start to feel unaffordable, it's a clear sign that something in the system is deeply broken. When staples like cheese, chicken, and even cooking oil start slipping out of reach, it's not just a grocery issue, it's a lifestyle shift. And for millions of Americans, this shift isn't optional. It's already happening, quietly, week by week, shopping trip by shopping trip. We're not just talking about individual choices anymore. This is about entire communities adapting to a new normal. One where the grocery cart has fewer items, the meals are a little simpler, and the decisions a lot more stressful. But here's the truth. While prices may be out of our control, how we respond isn't. Now more than ever, it's critical to shop smart. That means tracking local deals and discount days at stores like Walmart, Aldi, or Sam's Club. Using apps that alert you when prices drop or when items hit clearance. Joining co-ops or bulk buying groups with friends and family. Swapping recipes for lower-cost substitutions that still offer nutrition and comfort. Keeping a small pantry of shelf-stable basics that can cover you when prices spike. If you're part of a local church, neighborhood Facebook group, or community center, connect. The more people share tips, leftovers, or even carpool for grocery runs, the more we all stretch our dollars together. And finally, speak up. Whether it's voting on policies that affect food subsidies, supporting local farms at farmers markets, or simply telling your store manager what your family can no longer afford, your voice matters. This video isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to prepare you. If you've noticed yourself skipping out on cheese, buying fewer veggies, or holding off on that jar of peanut butter, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are right there with you, making tough choices every single week. So now we want to hear from you. What food have you had to give up or cut back on in 25? Let us know in the comments. And if this video helped you feel more informed, give it a like and share it with someone who could use a reality check on today's grocery economy. Stay strong, stay smart, stay stocked.